and Wellness, and I want to welcome you today to our presentation and tell you a little bit about what has happened to me through this journey, give you guys an understanding of how I got to where I am with the weight loss program and how I bettered my life overall, how things are very different for me mentally, emotionally, as well as physically. So, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I started doing hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming in 1996 and just kind of doing it on the side and having a good time with it. And then when my mom passed away, I went through massive depression and anxiety. That was a pivoting moment for me. Not necessarily for the best pivoting moment, but because it started inducing anxiety, depression, and everything else. I've worked on losing weight forever. I mean, there's so many diet plans out there, so many things you can do, so many even mindsets that people give you, and they say, oh, if you can do this mindset, then you're going to be able to live a happier life or live a better life or be able to enjoy more of what you do. What I found was that yes, you can, but it takes more than that. It takes being able to be active within yourself, understanding yourself, knowing what it takes for you to change, what it takes for you to be able to understand things, as well as being able to just know what has to be done. And sometimes you have to be in that right place at the right time, right? So people are going to be popping in and out of here, I believe, and just go ahead and allow that to happen. I'm going to have you guys just kind of focusing on what we're doing. In a moment, I'll start a slide presentation. That'll be a little bit easier for us to be able to focus on everything. Today, I want to give you a lot of information. I'm going to give you probably so much information that you're not going to be able to think straight, but you're going to have to be able to organize it and categorize it in your own head at the end of this seminar, at the end of this talk. Because there's a lot of time and a lot of effort that has been going on in my personal journey. So just didn't happen overnight. It took a long time. But I think that the way we put this together now, it makes it much easier for you to be able to attain your goals in weight loss, in happiness, in the way you feel. And let me go ahead and get started with the presentation. We'll get into that real quick and then just kind of cover some things so you guys can kind of see and understand where we are as far as what goes on with deeper states mind and wellness, as well as the journey of being able to release and let go of weight. I do have David with us today, and I'll introduce him later on. He's going to be talking to us about food. He's a good friend of mine. He actually was able to watch everything that was going on as far as food and learning how to eat and everything else. During the pandemic, he learned how to cook very well. I was not doing that at that time. But it helped with this journey, and I think that he has some insight that'll be able to help us quite a bit. So as I go into the slideshow, I'm not going to be able to see you guys. So if you guys, once we're done and I get to a point, I'll let you guys go ahead and ask some questions. But I think living a healthy lifestyle comes into play in many more ways than just dieting, right? It comes into play with emotions. It comes into play with happiness. It comes into play with how we strive ourselves to be better in our own personal lives. And one thing I found in my journey is that sometimes it takes a pivotal moment for that to ever happen. And it also takes time to get there, right? So I became borderline diabetic. That was my pivotal moment. And also, the understanding that I could not continue feeling the way I was. And I know a lot of you have that time in your life where you wake up and you're just like, oh my God, I can't get out of bed. And some of us, the older you are, the more that gets to become problematic, right? As you realize that the problem started years ago and now they're adding back into it. And whoever just came in the room, I can't see you. So if you could just mute yourself, I appreciate it. So as we go through the process of releasing excess weight, or mentally and emotionally get ourselves in the right place, right? We have to adjust ourselves to different behaviors. And I'm going to talk about that today. Like I said, I'm going to give you a lot of information. Dave's going to give you a lot of information. Hopefully what we give you, you can take with you and you'll be able to start a program within yourself. I will have an opportunity for you to be able to work with us at the end as well. So welcome to the power of achieving optimum health and wellness. I want to create, and we're going to create a group on Facebook where we can have a safe environment to live a better and a healthier life. Because like I said, I don't think that living a happy life has to do with just weight loss. We go through emotions. I mean, we came through a pandemic. We've come through many challenges in our lives. And some of us have had a lot of people die. Some of us had a lot, and not even through COVID, just natural processes, right? So this group will be a place where people can come in. We'll do seminars there occasionally, bring people in, maybe live events, start doing some hikes together, start building this group so that it continues having a whole mind, whole body, whole wellness, right? We want an environment we'll be able to do that. That's coming in the future. And it's because you're at the seminar today, whoever signed up for this, we'll give you guys access to it. You will have to ask some questions because we want to make sure we're getting qualified people in that group that will be willing to support each other and to be there for each other. So understanding your journey and what was the change for me? Understanding your cycles of life, right? I mean, so after my mother passed away, I would say that weight loss wasn't a priority for me. Happiness wasn't a priority for me. Depression and anxiety was. I had to understand that I had to be ready for change. And for me, it was the passing of my mom that turned into blocked emotions. I held those emotions for a long, long time. I had never experienced loss. So when that happened, it became this thing of like, why me? All the things you go through grief, except it turned into fat for me. I found that I would eat whenever I was emotional. I would eat whenever things were happening to me. If things were happy, I would eat. If things were sad, I would eat. If I would be somewhere thinking about my mom, I would eat. So eat kind of came into play, as well as the background, right? I'm Hispanic. I was raised eating beans and rice. Chimichangas are my favorite Mexican food. And that was a daily basis. Homemade flour tortillas made with lard, so environmentally we're conditioned the way that we are going to be for the rest of our lives, I think, during childhood. And I mean, that's a big statement to make, but I really do believe that that is true. And I think that for me, the carbs were huge. For me, beating myself up sometimes because I wasn't meeting my accomplishments or meeting the expectations of other people was huge. But that was all a foundation created by my childhood, by my family, by my parents, right? And all of you will experience that. All of you will have those aha moments that you're like, oh my God, I'm acting like my mom. Or, oh my God, I'm acting like my dad. So those are also factors that you need to take into play and say, okay, maybe you're not ready to make those changes with some of those emotions. Maybe those emotions are important. They've kept you safe your entire life. But if it's detrimental to your health, detrimental to your happiness, detrimental to who you are as a human being, it's probably a good time to make changes now. I learned how to check in with myself, how to understand my feelings. It helped me avoid unhealthy eating habits because remember, like I said, I was a very emotional eater. I mean, I ate because my emotions got in the way. And it's okay to say no to yourself, but you have to be able to get to that point. I had to make uncomfortable lifestyle changes until I enjoyed them. What I mean by that is I hate the gym. I still do. People say, oh my God, if you go to the gym, you're going to love it. I do love what it's doing to my body. I do not love driving to the gym, going in, and the initial getting on that treadmill for me is like, it's like pulling nose hairs out of my nose. I cannot stand it. But once I get there doing it, I understand that emotionally, what's going to happen to me? How am I going to feel? Am I going to wake up in the morning clear-headed? Am I going to wake up feeling great? Am I going to make choices that are going to make me feel good? The gym was a huge change for me. I love breakfast. I grew up having breakfast, full on breakfast, omelets, hash browns, a pound of bacon. I grew up that way. So that was another thing, was a big change that I had to understand in my journey, was that I had to stop having breakfast. And if I want to have breakfast, I'm going to have it at lunch. I'm going to talk about why I made these choices, because after all the dieting I did, only one thing helped for me, and that was the intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting made a huge change in my life. It made me understand that if I could get my body accustomed to having 2 meals a day, now I've cut my calorie intake, correct? But also what I found is that it improved other parts of my body. So I thought, well, if I start doing this and I can get this down, then the journey's easy for me because I will have a system that's set in place. And it's important to have those systems. It's important to take note of your emotions. So when those emotions happen, you trigger in, and instead of triggering being like, oh my God, I need to eat this, you trigger and say, oh, why am I feeling that way? What is this? How is this emotion benefiting me? Right. So one thing that intermittent fasting will do is it'll change the function of your hormones, your cells, and your genes. We know that it changes the plasticity of the brain. It actually it makes the plasticity of the brain grow. because it's healing, it's curing. Um, it causes weight loss, visceral fat reduction. And whoever's coming in the room, as you come in, just mute your microphones, please. You'll see the button, the red button down below that has a microphone. Just mute your mics. Weight loss and visceral fat reduction happens naturally with intermittent fasting. It improves your heart health. I was had blood pressure issues. They had given me another medication. They removed that medication. I was type 2 diabetic. Now I'm borderline diabetic. I've had two pills removed and one reduced. They're looking at reducing another one, which is a metformin, which hopefully that'll go away as well. It takes time for your pancreas to heal, just like it took time for your pancreas to cause you to become diabetic. I'll talk more about that as we go into our groups. A lot of times what happened is there's like a 3-year period that I feel that is there's that digestive period where diabetes sits kind of dormant. It's borderline, but you haven't gone over that cliff yet. Another thing intermittent fasting does naturally is it reduces your inflammation throughout your entire body. You'll see that's one of the first things you start noticing. And we know that when there's inflammation in the body, of course, it causes disease, right? We know that those are interconnected with each other. So when you reduce one, you're reducing your risk of cancer. You're reducing your risk of heart attack. You're reducing the risk of a multitude of disease, right? And the interesting thing about that is I have a friend that had a massive heart attack that was doing intermittent fasting. He's recovered like that. Other than the mental aspect of his being able to function, he's still working on that. And it's been a while, but the man couldn't walk. The man couldn't talk. He had no mobility in his arms and his legs. After he said 3 or 4 months of the intermittent fasting and getting his body healthy and eating properly, it made all these changes. I mean, you would not look at him and think that he had a massive heart attack. So the inflammation causes a lot of that destruction, that effect to the body. Living a happy lifestyle can be complex if you allow it to be. So intermittent fasting has a lot of aspects to it. I'm going to go over those real quick because I want you to just kind of have an understanding of it. So the methods that are for intermittent fasting. Fasting is also known as meal timing. So timing your meals based on your hours in your day, your hours in your night. So these are just some of the different forms of intermittent fasting. 16 and 8, the method is that it involves fasting every day for 16 hours and restricting your daily eating windows for 8 hours. That's what I do. That's what my friend Dave does. Some of you on the call have done this with me through some of my programs and had successes with it. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I want to open that up at the end. And if there's questions and stuff, let's address them. 5 and 2 diet, which this method, you eat normally 5 days a week and you fast, or you eat less than 500 or 600 calories 2 days a week. I haven't attempted any of this because we'll go back and I'll talk about why I did the 16 and 8. Alternative day fasting. It involves alternating between days of normal eating and days where you're either completely fasting or you have one small meal. And it's got to be less than 500 calories. One meal a day, OMAD, one meal a day is what they call that. As the name suggests, the method involves eating only one meal a day. And when my friend Dave comes in, he'll be able to tell us there's a couple actors that actually came out saying that that's what they've been doing for a long time. And you can kind of picture them in your head and that'll give you an idea whether it worked for them or not, right? So for me, I'll tell you that the intermittent fasting was a way for me to go because it was easy. I could understand that if I went to 16 and 8, it would work for most of my people in my programs as it was working for me, as it started working for my friend Dave, as it started working for my friend Morella, as it started working for everybody that I have ever introduced to it. 16 and 8 is the easiest to follow. And now remember, if you're having 3 meals a day, you've now reduced yourself by 1 meal. By reducing yourself by 1 meal, you've now cut your calorie intake. So cutting your calorie intake is going to force you to start reducing weight, right? Unless there's hormonal issues or anything else. And it's important to be able to choose a method that suits your lifestyle, because I have a client that he works night graveyard at the port. And this client had to switch everything out, right? His 16 and 8 are backwards, but it's working for him. So talk to your healthcare professional, make sure that they are okay with you intermittent fasting. There could be some other underlying issues you're dealing with that they might be like, don't fast, now's not the time. Or, one thing I'll tell you, and this is something I learned on my own, is that medication doesn't know what time you take it. So if you're out there saying, oh my God, I got to take my medication first thing in the morning, I have to wake up and take that blood pressure pill, your body and your medications are going to adjust to what it is and your cycles that you're eating and not eating and when you're taking those pills. Those pills don't have a time factor into them. All they're going to do is operate the way they're meant to operate. So I stay on your medications, adjust them with your fast, right? So it's always important to check with that. One thing with the 16 and 8 that I will tell you is that it's easy to follow once you got the hang of it. There's some mornings you're going to have a hard time. You're like, oh my God, I'm just freaking starving. And then, it's only, and then that epiphany through the hypnosis and NLP will be, oh, but I only have an hour to go. I can do it. You get busy doing something, you'll forget about that. With our intermittent fasting program, we do offer something that we call, it's called a Frosty program. The Frosty program helps you skip a day. One thing it's really important to know and to understand is that when you're intermittent fasting, if you're doing the 16 and 8 for a long time, remember, our body has memory, right? So you might plateau. If you plateau, then what I've done when that's happened to me is I take a 24-hour break. I fast for 24 hours. It recycles me. Or when we if we're going to have 3 meals a day, you have 3 meals a day, that's considered a Frosty. I'll tell you, if you've done this long enough, it's very difficult for you to have more than 2 meals a day. It becomes very difficult to have either dinner or lunch. It becomes tough. So you're naturally going to lose weight that way as well. And it's going to recycle your system. It's going to put you back on track. I want to talk a little bit of the state of our country. You see, our country, let's give you the overview. So total diabetics, and these are registered diabetics, okay, is 37.3 million people have diabetes in the United States. Imagine what that's like to have somebody consuming 37.3 million people consuming your drugs to keep themselves happy and keep themselves healthy, quote unquote, right? Or to keep their diabetes in check. My goal in my program is to get you to be able to reduce your medication, is to be able to possibly become diabetes free. We know that the pancreas can go back and it can reheal itself. But not only does this program do that for you, it's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you realize, like, wow, my thighs don't rub when I walk anymore. Or wow, you know what? I can actually go up that hill when I couldn't go up that hill before. I went from 270 pounds. I'm now checking in at 168, 170, and that's been that way for the last 4 months. So I think I met my goal, and I believe I'm going to sit right there. I do not buy fat clothes anymore because that's what I used to do. If I was getting bigger, I'd buy something bigger. So now what I need to do is start actually just buying clothes that fit and work on that. Diagnosed people are 28.7 million people that have been diagnosed with diabetes. That means they're not doing anything about it. They've been diagnosed, but they're not really doing anything about it. They're being told they're borderline diabetic. They're being told, well, you just got to put things in check, and they're not really hitting the point where they're checking them over and over again. Those people that are diagnosed with it are just starting into that stage. The 28.7 million people are starting into that stage where they're realizing, oh, I'm diabetic. I got to do something about this. And it's very scary at the beginning. It's important for you to take that fear and make those changes. All right. Undiagnosed. These are people that have no idea they have diabetes. These are people that are borderline diabetic, or they're just right there and they just don't even know it. And they maintain that way for many, many years. I mean, people can maintain borderline diabetes forever. The only thing is that it's really difficult on your body, because what happens is you're going up, you're spiking out, and you're dropping. So what happens is when you spike out and your sugars get into 200, 300, 400, the glucose level, what's happening is that your organs are damaged and being damaged through that process. Plus you feel horrible, you guys. You just feel horrible. So the people that are undiagnosed are just walking around. That now 96 million adults have pre-diabetes. Imagine if you could address that issue now, right? That opens this window of opportunity for change. And I think that the longer you remain diabetic, the longer you remain borderline diabetic, the more difficult it is to reverse all that, to get the pancreas to actually begin to function properly again. The changes that I had happen to my life went way beyond losing weight. I mean, I wake up feeling good. I wake up feeling like, oh, you know what? I can get shit done, right? Because when you're obese, it's difficult. It's hard to even move the body around. I was 270 pounds. I was moving that weight around daily, and it's exhausting. People look at people that are overweight and they create these judgments. And now that I get lost the weight and I've been there, done that, right? Been here, done this, I could say, yeah, it's probably true. I mean, I have more mobility than I've ever had in my life. I feel better right now than I have felt even in high school, because my system has just regenerated everything and I feel so good. Remember, intermittent fasting rebuilds your cells, rebuilds your cellular level. I feel like I look younger. I feel good. So I wake up with a very clear mind. And Dave will talk a little bit about this, how when you intermittent fast, there's this morning period where you're just like your acuity's on. You feel like you're just brilliant and you can get things done and your energy level is different. I never had that when I was fat. Okay. My body is cutting in a very natural way. And what I mean by that is I've talked to many people that are lifting weights who have nice bodies, not just at the gym, but on TikTok and other places where I've spoken to other people. Intermittent fasting causes your body to naturally cut. What that means is that your body's going through this fasting period. It goes through the morning period where it's using your fat instead of using your muscle. And it's using that fat for energy. It's burning, right? So you're releasing pounds while you're doing whatever you're doing in the morning. And it gives the body the clarity to be able to utilize all of that, as opposed to just holding it in. And it's crucial to have a support team to help you succeed. And what I mean by that is it's crucial to have a support team that knows you, understands you, and can work with you. I mean, I had dietitians I go to dietitian classes with, I'm not going to say the medical company, but with my health insurance, they had me go through classes and presentations telling me how to eat. And I remember that the dietitian was like, well, you can have watermelon, just, have the watermelon you want, just portion control. For me, portion control was that I came and I ate half a watermelon. I cut it into pieces and I enjoyed it with some salt on it. It was spiking me. Fruits and vegetables are great. Fruit, I cut out completely because I found that fruit is high in sugar. And I had a CGM, which is one of the monitors that you use on your arm. The monitor was kind of telling me what was happening with the consumption of what I was eating and what I was putting into my system. So I'm just going to go through slides real quick so you guys can kind of see those. So all right. So there's some of the things that intermittent fasting helps you with. It changes the function of hormones. It's good for weight loss. It gets rid of visceral fat reduction automatically, naturally. It improves your heart health and it reduces inflammation. These are the methods of intermittent fasting. If you guys want to take notes, 16-8 method is one. 14 and 10 method is the other. It's similar to the 16 and 8 method. It just involves fasting for 14 hours a day and having 10 hours of eating windows. 5 and 10, which is a diet method, which is done by a lot of people. You keep yourself around the 500, 600 calories. Alternating days when you're fasting, 1 meal a day, OMAD. You can see there why I chose the intermittent fasting and why it works best with my clients. We've been able to utilize that with quite a few of my clients, and it works really well. This is just the statistics I gave you guys on the state of the country, where people are diabetic, who is diagnosed, who's undiagnosed, and who's pre-diabetic. And then the changes that I made and the changes that I felt that happened to me, besides just losing weight, these are some of the changes that you will feel as you begin to go through this program. And of course, like I said, it's important to have a support team to help you succeed. So now I want to come in and I'd like to introduce my colleague. He helped me with planning my meals as well as learning what made sense for me, right? As far as food went, because I kind of ate whatever. I would eat whatever, and I would sometimes, way before all this, I would pick up a Snickers bar on my way out of the grocery store to come home and make dinner. I'd like to take a moment and welcome Mr. David Wolf. He is the founder and the CEO of David Wolf Consulting. David's been able to improve his overall health significantly. He reduced his weight and more than 50 pounds. He's been able to get himself off of diabetes medications through meal planning, which he's going to talk a little bit about that. And he's going to talk about a little bit about intermittent fasting, healthy eating, and additional exercises that you can do. Doesn't mean that you have to go work at the treadmill and run on the treadmill, because I'll tell you that I do that, but it's not something that I really enjoy doing. Like I shared with you, the gym for me is not something that to this day I'm feeling like I absolutely love it. I don't. I'd like to introduce David, and David, just go and come up on the platform and just kind of give us an idea what you have to say. And I'm going to pin you. So let's see what that does. It should bring you into the full frame. Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
Great. Well, thank you everyone. And for joining, and thank you, Michael, for your presentation. And Michael has been a big part of my weight loss journey and my getting healthier. Over the last 15 to 20 years, I've definitely yo-yoed a lot. I've been successful at losing weight, and then I significantly gain weight. In fact, the yo-yo, unfortunately, is like I'd lose 40 or 50 pounds, and I'd put on not just the 40 or 50 pounds more, but another 10 or 20. And at some point, a few years ago, Michael had started intermittent fasting, and I was completely closed to the idea, because I wake up early and I love to make breakfast. I love to eat breakfast, and I couldn't imagine waiting till 11 or 12, depending on which plan you do, or even 10. And I thought if I ate 2 meals a day, I would be starving. And I resisted for like a year or so of Michael and our friend Christian and many other friends encouraging me to do it. And then I finally did it. And much to my shock, I'm less hungry than I was when I was eating. I'm eating 2 meals a day, eating 8 hours a day, fasting 16 hours a day. I'm less hungry than when I used to eat 3 meals a day for many, many hours. And occasionally I'll have breakfast food for lunch, but I don't really miss it. And it for me, it was a big obstacle to overcome, but I was able to overcome. But I think the biggest thing I learned from all my past weight losses and then weight gains is I wanted something sustainable, and I wanted to avoid gaining the weight back. So in the past, I had done keto. I lost easily 50 pounds on keto, and I know that if I'm willing to commit to never having a carb for the rest of my life, I could do it and keep it off. But I find that's highly unrealistic if you're going to eat out or even go to friends' homes. Short term it can work, but when I reintroduced the carbs, the weight all came back. So for me, what I've learned is that if I don't plan and schedule and think about meals, like, today's Tuesday, I can tell you what I'm having tonight, tomorrow night, Thursday night, Friday night, probably Saturday night. Going out and buying the food, figuring out what you're going to eat for lunch and dinner. There's no surprises. I think spontaneity and lack of planning is probably the biggest enemy to weight loss or maintaining weight. I think that when we don't plan things is when we go get pizza, McDonald's, DoorDash, Uber Eats, all that stuff. It's never a good choice. Very few people are ordering salads on Uber Eats. So for me, it's about patterns and maintaining those patterns. And it does require thinking ahead and planning ahead. And especially, and many people I've talked to say that they're so busy that, they end up in the drive-through line or ordering meal delivery because they're so busy. And the key is, when you have some time on a Saturday or Sunday, is start thinking about what you're going to eat Thursday. Start thinking about what you're going to eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, because you can meal prep, you can freeze it, you can put it in the fridge. For me, I found that the key to maintaining the weight loss is planning ahead. And there's things you could do, like ready bought things, like I've gone to the ready made salads and just adding like grilled chicken or salmon. It doesn't have to. I think many of us get overwhelmed with the idea of cooking a full meal, whether it's dinner or lunch. We want something simple, and the simple things end up being unhealthy things usually. And I have a friend who has a very stressful job, and he says he has no time to prepare for food. And when I went to visit him in Palm Springs a few months ago, he was eating. He will go half a day without eating, 3/4 of a day without eating, and then he'll eat a bag of Doritos. And I think that that's not that unusual. I think a lot of people fall back on something easy and convenient if you're not planning ahead. The other thing I've learned is knowing food shopping. Go to the grocery store. It requires planning and thought. Like, I used to go to the store when I was starving, and I'd come home with chips. I'd come home with chips and salsa. I'd come home with ice cream. I'd come home with all kinds of unhealthy snacks. And I think many of us do it because you're so hungry. And then I've learned also to stick very closely to my list so I don't come home with ice cream and donuts and cookies and bad things. And then reading labels. This is something that Michael actually taught me years ago when he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. At the time I did not have it. Now I have it as well. But that time I didn't. But we, neither of us knew that if you look at pasta sauce or you look at ketchup, salad dressing, you find sometimes the sugar levels are off the charts. You can find 7 or 8 grams of sugar in a pasta sauce, and ketchup. A lot of people add ketchup to everything, and ketchup is very, very high in sugar. So you really have to, pay attention to the smaller things. And when you're in the supermarket, turn that bottle around and look at, fat, calories, and definitely sugar levels and sodium levels too. And then I've learned another thing is when you do buy food, if you're a very busy person and you're trying to plan ahead, some of the foods that don't go bad quickly that are healthy, like things like Brussels sprouts, cabbage, different types of lettuce, they generally last a lot longer. There's other foods like broccoli lasts a long time, cauliflower, but many other vegetables will expire real quickly. So part of it's thinking ahead and realizing, well, if I buy the Brussels sprouts, I have like a week to cook them. And then a major thing for me was figuring out what my weaknesses were. So I know that the number one weakness I have is peanut butter filled pretzels. And I used to buy them all the time, and I couldn't eat 1 or 2. I ate the entire bag, even the big, huge Costco one. I know if I buy ice cream, I'm going to eat ice cream. So I generally just don't keep it in the house for the most part. Potato chips can be a weakness, so I don't buy those. So I think some of it's just, thinking, putting some restrictions on what you eat or what you buy so that you won't fall into those traps. And then, most people seem to have, you're either were carb addicts or sugar addicts or both. So for me, I've learned I'm a carb addict, and I need to, carefully control the carbs. And then for others, the sweets become the bigger issue. So it's like figuring out what is your soft spot and then targeting that. So I covered those. Let's see. Oh, portion control is another big one. So for some of us, like for me, my portion control, I used to eat out all the time, pretty much every day, two to 3 times, 2 times a day. And the portion controls, the size of, if you go to Panda Express, you're getting enough food to feed 2, maybe even 3 people. And there were times, when I would eat the whole portion. And now if I get any type of Chinese food, I always split it with a friend or save it for another meal. Other people I know often have the opposite problem, and that their meals are too small. Like the friend in Palm Springs, he eats very little food, and then he's starving and he eats an entire bag of Doritos. So I think for some people it's like thinking about maybe having some berries. Michael mentioned fruit is bad, but berries are really good because berries are very low in sugar. So adding berries Maybe you could have a salad or, a protein shake as a meal, but then maybe add some berries as a side, maybe cottage cheese and berries, things like that can make you more full. Because if your meals are not big enough or filling enough, then you will find yourself eating a Snickers bar, like Michael said, or in my case, maybe the peanut butter pretzels, whatever it is. The other source of hidden sugar to watch out for is in drinks. So whether it's Coca-Cola, Pepsi, it has like 38 or something grams of sugar, but iced tea often, if it's sweetened iced tea, is just as high. I've had ginger beers that are 45 grams of sugar, and then alcohol. You got to be careful too, because there's a lot of sugars very often in alcohol, so that's another one to watch out for. And then something that I'll discuss more, for people who want to sign up and become part of the entire program. But resistant starch is something that's relatively new technology that new studies have come out in the last few years, where there's a lot of talk about resistant starch and how eating carbs hot isn't necessarily the same as letting them cool and reheating them or eating them cold. There's a lot of really interesting studies that I've seen, and it's worked for me a lot too, to use that. And then when it comes to carb, everyone knows that the tension that carbs can be bad, but there's a lack of focus of, well, are you eating French fries, which are peeled potatoes that are cooked in oil, which is so unhealthy, or are you having a baked potato with the skin on that is baked, and it's an entirely different insulin load on your body. And just a few more points. Healthy oils and fats. I've learned to cook with avocado oil, olive oil, and ghee. And I used to use vegetable oil, corn oil, all those, canola oil, and a lot of the research now says they're very unhealthy. Coconut oil, sort of, some people are proponents, and others say not to take it. And then the one big thing I've learned from yo-yoing is that fad diets really don't work long term. I'm sure many of you remember the cabbage soup diet, which, if I could live on cabbage soup the rest of my life, I'm sure I'd be much skinnier, but it's not a realistic goal. And there's a lot of other programs. Some people have done Atkins and carnivore diet and gluten-free, and just, some of them work. And then the question is, can you sustain it? And then setting structure. So I find limiting, I love dessert, as most people do, but limiting, if you're going to go out to the restaurants a lot, and make sure you only order dessert maybe once a week. Or if it's at home, give yourself once, maybe twice a week that you can have dessert. I make a lot of Jell-O, sugar-free Jell-O. So that's sort of a safe dessert that doesn't really have a lot of calories. And then Michael touched on exercising. And at times when I lost significant weight, I was a gym rat. And I know Michael himself, I think, sometimes becomes a gym rat. But many people don't have the time or don't want to. And I think, we have to look at, it's not always realistic for any of us, work-wise, time-wise, to do that. So the other options are, just walking 30 minutes a day has been proven to help with weight loss. So, I think every one of us can figure out, either first thing in the morning or maybe after the end of the day, towards the end of the day, 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be a run. It doesn't have to be up a hill. It could be a flat, easy 30-minute walk, but it does help with weight loss. And then even things like, using an exercise bicycle at home, using a treadmill at home, using
I want to interject something on that real quick. So one thing we'll do is, when you do our big program, we'll work with you and find out what it is that you want to do. One thing is, I don't like to assign an exercise to a client if the client's not going to do it. So we'll have a one-on-ones with each other, and we'll talk about what it is you're willing to do. Because some of my clients aren't willing to walk every day. They're willing to go to the gym. Some of my gym people aren't willing to go to the gym. Maybe they're willing to go swimming. So we'll talk about that. We'll figure out what works for you.
Great. Well, I think that pretty much concludes what I had to say. Now, Michael, I think you wanted to open up to questions.
Yeah. So that's a lot of information, isn't it, guys? A lot of information. But we'll go into a little bit more to make this easier in a minute. I want to open this up to everybody. If you guys have some questions or you want to address something to us right now, or just a comment, unmute yourself, you guys. Let's go into a forum group and let's see if we can just kind of get some questions going. Go ahead and unmute yourself, you guys.
I think Donna had a question.
Yes. I do. I have a question about the resistant starch. I've heard that term one other time, but run that by me again. What is that?
Well, essentially, there have been a lot of studies done that show that if you were to eat, let's say I cook a baked potato and I cook it right before dinner and I eat that baked potato hot, which is normally how I would do it, or go to a restaurant and have it done, it's going to spike your blood sugar massively. But they've done studies that show that if you make that baked potato, let's say right after this call, and let it cool down and then put it in the refrigerator and then either put it in the oven tonight to reheat it or microwave. And actually, surprisingly, microwave is actually the best option for resistant starches. But that baked potato doesn't spike your sugar anywhere near as much when it's been cooled down. And it's been shown with rice. It's been shown with pasta.
And we'll cover all that. There's a lot more to all that. It's not just that. There's more to all that.
That's the basis of resistance.
That's very bottom line of that. If you want to get into more detail with that, we'll do that when we start actually doing the groups, because there's a lot here. There's a lot for you guys to understand. I mean, I went on what we call a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, which a couple of my clients are on now. Made huge differences. We'll be able to explain some of that and kind of talk about that, as well as maybe it's an option for you. It'll give you insight. It might open up new ideas for you. You might be able to be like, wow, shit, I was eating that and didn't realize that was spiking me at my glucose up to 300, 400. It's crazy. The way I found out, go ahead.
Why'd you share what meals really spiked your continuous glucose monitor?
That's right. So a continuous glucose monitor is basically the thing that they stick in your arm. And what it does, for me, it was connected to Kaiser Permanente, because I was on a trial basis with them. So what it did, it gave them those numbers. I was able to see on my phone what my food consumption was doing to me. So everybody always tells you fruit's really good for you. You should have all the fruit you want, throughout the day. So I was having like 2 and 3 bananas. Dave will tell you. I'd have like 3 apples one day because I was like, oh my God, I need the sugar. I'm really hungry. So I'd have like 3 apples.
Or the cherries.
And I'll tell you a little more.
Bowls
when I got that,
of cherries.
When I used to eat bags of cherries by myself. Right. Dave didn't eat cherries, so I would have a bag of cherries to myself. But what was interesting when I got the continuous glucose monitor was that I had a handful of cherries and it took my glucose monitor up to 260. I had a banana. I went up to 185. So then what I did was I was like, wow, this is huge. So you cannot become non-diabetic if you are serving yourself those kind of sugars when the pancreas is supposed to be healing. Now, if your pancreas is healed, yeah, sure, you can have an apple, you can have a banana, you can do whatever you like, as long as it's not continual. I was having 3 apples a day some days, and not realizing what it was doing to my glucose. So that's a very eye-opening moment. And we'll talk about the CGM when we actually, if you do one of our classes, we'll talk about what's happening with CGM, what is it doing to your body, how does it help you get to your end result.
Michael, the one I was thinking about with the spiking blood sugar was also the corn dog with the chili.
That's right.
Chili is sort of another thing, like you don't expect sugar to be in chili.
And that was weird because we had gone out, we were running really, really late, and I needed something to eat because we were hitting that point where it was time, we had to eat something. So what ended up happening was I thought, well, we had a coupon. Let's go to Wiener Schnitzel. So I got a corn dog for each of us. We each had a hot dog with chili, a chili hot dog. And then we split a small fry. I didn't realize that the corn dog had sugar, that the chili dog had sugar, and that my French fries were going to be a starch that was going to spike me. I came home and my sugars were like close to 300 after that. So, a matter of fact, it was what we were eating it, because that continued glucose monitor tells you what's happening in the moment. I wish Lisa could unmute herself, because Lisa has got a CGM on her now, and I'd love to hear her story. But I think she's going somewhere. She's got a mission somewhere. She looks like she's driving down the 405 freeway like fast. I can't mute you. I can't unmute you, Lisa. You have to unmute yourself, sweetie.
We can't hear you, Lisa.
Okay. So Lisa is on a CGM right now. Lisa's actually experienced that process of what's happening with her when she's losing weight. So anyway, let me go ahead. I want to tell you when it kind of, I have like an offer for you guys, mostly because what's happening is a lot of people. So I charge between $2,000 to $4,000 for my program one-on-ones. I feel this is really important. I feel it's important for people to be able to have that availability, right? I am here to work on people's health. I'm here for overall everything. I'm offering an introductory rate for something that I've created that's going to be a 6-week program. I can do groups like this, but I can't do one-on-ones because everybody's an individual, right? So everybody has different stories, different needs, different wants. So what we're putting together right now, and I'll put a link in here for you. You can share this with friends. You have the connection to this, so you can tell your friends what it is that I do and how we can work with them and how we can help them. Dave will be doing a presentation. This is what you'll get with the program I'm creating, what I'm visioning to happen here. So one, I want a community that we have a safe place. So if you want to say something or do something or say, look, I'm having a problem with this, or, emotionally, this is happening to me. I want a safe place. And that's where the private group will come into play, where we can talk. You can openly share what helps each other. And, emotions play a big part on weight loss. I will tell you, emotions play a big part on what everything that happens to us. You'll get group coaching. You'll get access to the behavior modification MP3s, which we're going to be adding more to that. You get a workshop on eating healthy and foods to avoid or to not avoid. Dave will help you with that. You'll get a guide to creating your weight loss plan, your happy living, happy lifestyle plan, which you guys already, some of you downloaded that already and got that for free. And you'll have the group hypnosis sessions. I want to meet once a week. When we meet once a week, we'll be able to discuss what's happening. And if some of you need private sessions, we also have an upgrade for that as well, that you guys can come in and do my private sessions at 50% off. So normally that ends up looking at about $4,500 if you're working privately with me one-on-one. But today what I want to do is I want to offer this to you, your friends, your family, anybody else that's out there for $277. It is a group program. I cannot do this one-on-one for that value because I have a lot of clients, and it's tough to be able to know what everybody's experiencing and what's happening to everybody based on just what a group call, right? But I want it available. So if you want to talk to me in a private link inside of the private group, we can do that. And I can address your issues there privately. All right. So I'm going to post the link on here right now, and you guys should see that pop up. If you click on that, that's going to take you over to the sign up for that course. It starts October 31st, and we're going to go from 11 to 12, same hours we did today. And the reason I'm doing that, I know that it'd be much easier if I did it on a weekend, or much easier if I did it at night, right? But I want some commitment from you guys. I want you guys to be able to commit yourself to being healthy, to feeling good, to having a lifestyle that just embraces you as a man or a woman. And I think, I will tell you, I believe, and I know that once you start doing this and you start reaching your goals, it changes your entire life. Things change for you. Anyway, so I want to wrap this up. I want to leave that out there for you guys. Invite your friends, invite your family. Remember, we have until October 31st to bring everybody on board. Once people come on board October 31st, I am going to close this class out and not have other people join, because it's too complicated to come in and try to figure out where everybody's at in the middle of a program. We'll make it fun. We'll make it enjoyable. I want to have a good time. It cannot be, no, you can't have that, because that's going to be a problem, right? I don't want to come to something like that. So spread the word, bring people in, let them join us. And for 277, I'm going to tell you that, you can't even do Weight Watchers for that. All right. And I promise you'll get better results than Weight Watchers. I promise you that. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate everybody. Those of you who want to stay on the call a little bit longer, you're welcome to. If you have questions for us, I am going to stop. All right, you guys can stay here with us. I'm going to just stop the recording now.